All right, today we're going to dive deep into your own mind and meet the two characters who are pretty much always pulling the strings. But to do that, we have to start with a little mental workout. You ready?
Okay, take a look at this problem on your screen. Now, don't actually solve it yet. Just notice how it feels. You instantly see its multiplication. You know you could solve it if you really had to. But the answer, it doesn't just pop into your head, does it? There's no flash of genius here?
If you actually tried to crunch those numbers in your head, you would feel the strain. That's mental work. It is deliberate, it takes effort, and your body even gets in on the act. Your muscles might get a little tense, your pupils actually dilate. This is what slow, conscious thinking feels like. It's a choice you have to make.
Okay, let's switch gears. Try something else. I want you to picture an angry face. What happens now? Bam. Instantly, you know she's angry. You didn't have to think about it at all. You probably even got a little flash of what she might do next. Maybe she's about to yell or say something pretty harsh. It just happens to you.
See the difference there? It's huge. One is like this deliberate, tough climb up a hill, and the other is just an automatic, effortless flash of understanding. This is the work of two totally different characters inside your head, and today we are going to meet them.
So psychologists have given these two ways of thinking some pretty simple names, which we're going to use here. System 1 and System 2. The best way to think about them is like a little play, a psychodrama, with two main characters who are constantly interacting in your mind.
So who are these characters? Well, over on the left, you've got System 1. This is the star of the show. It's fast, it's intuitive, it's completely automatic. And on the right, you've got System 2, the supporting character who you probably think of as you. This is your conscious, reasoning self that makes deliberate choices. But here's the crazy part. Even though you identify with System 2, it's actually System 1 that's secretly running the show most of the time.
And System 1 is doing stuff constantly, all day long. Detecting that little bit of anger in someone's voice, answering 2 plus 2, finishing the phrase, bread and butter, driving down an empty road. All of this happens automatically, with pretty much zero effort. It's the engine just humming along, keeping your daily life running.
Now compare that to these tasks. These all need System 2 to show up for work. Trying to focus on one single conversation at a loud party, carefully squeezing your car into a tight parking spot, or filling out a tax form. They all demand something that is super precious and really limited, your attention. Just try to do 2 of these at once, and you'll see exactly how small that budget of attention really is.
So most of the time, these two systems have a pretty good thing going. System 1 handles all the easy stuff and then calls in System 2 when it's time for the heavy lifting. But sometimes their jobs overlap, and that's when they can come into direct conflict. For example, if you see the word blue, but it's written in red ink, and I ask you to tell me the color of the ink, you feel that little struggle, right? So why is that? It's because your System 1 automatically and uncontrollably reads the word blue. Your System 2 has to burn energy to override that impulse and say red. That feeling of strain, that's the feeling of your two systems fighting it out. And this just brilliantly shows their whole relationship. As this quote from the source material puts it, System 2 is basically your agent of self-control. It's the part of you that stops you from saying something you'll regret, forces you to focus on a boring report, and resists the urge to check your phone for the 10th time in a minute.
Okay, so System 1 is fast, it's efficient, it's automatic. Sounds pretty great, right? But it has a fatal flaw. It loves to take shortcuts and is prone to making the same mistakes over and over again. We call these biases. It can be fooled, and because it's automatic, it tends to pull the rest of your mind down with it.
Which brings us to one of the most famous visual illusions in all of psychology, which you're about to see right now.
So take a look at these two horizontal lines. One has these little fins pointing in, the other has them pointing out. Instantly, your System 1 gives you an answer. The bottom line is longer. It's not a guess, it's a feeling of absolute certainty. You see it as longer.
But they're not. They are exactly the same length. Now, here's what's so wild about this. Even though you know they are the same length, your System 2 now has the fact. You cannot stop your System 1 from seeing the bottom line is longer. The illusion just doesn't go away.
This quote just nails it. You can know the truth, you can believe the measurement, but you can't just switch off that automatic impression from System 1. And listen, this isn't just about lines on a page. This same thing happens with what we call cognitive illusions, illusions of thought.
Let's move on to another, just stunning example of our mind's limitations, which is summed up perfectly by this quote. It turns out that when our effortful System 2 is busy with a demanding task,
we can become shockingly blind to things happening right in front of our eyes.
So what's this number? Well, it's roughly the percentage of people who, in a famous experiment, were asked to count basketball passes in a video. And they completely failed to see a person in a full gorilla suit walk into the middle of the screen, thump their chest, and then walk off. Because their system 2 was so busy counting, the gorilla was, for all practical purposes, invisible.
So, what is the point of all this? What's the point of knowing about this little drama between a fast, intuitive hero and a slow, kind of lazy sidekick? Well, the point is that understanding this model can actually make you a better thinker.
Now, it is really important to get this straight. System 1 and System 2 are not actual things in your brain. There's no System 1 lobe or anything like that. They are, as the source material calls them, useful fictions. They're just nicknames that make it a whole lot easier to talk about and understand the incredibly complex ways our minds work.
So here is the first huge takeaway. You simply cannot decide to turn off your gut feelings. You can't turn off your intuitions or your automatic impressions. System 1 is always on, constantly generating suggestions, feelings, and impulses for your System 2 to look at. And this is the real secret. The goal isn't to live your life in constant doubt, second-guessing every single intuition. That would be completely exhausting. The goal is to learn to recognize the specific situations, the cognitive illusions that are likely to trip up your System 1. That's your cue to slow down, engage that effortful System 2, and just ask, hang on a second, is my first impression actually right here?
So, the next time you get a strong gut feeling about something, I want you to ask yourself this question. Is this a moment of brilliant insight, or is it a cognitive illusion? Because knowing what you know now about the two characters in your head, you have a real shot at telling the difference. And that's the first step toward making much wiser judgments and better decisions.